How's it going, guys? My name is Sean. Welcome to Venom Racing. And today, right behind me is my 2004 Honda S2000. We're going to do a clutch job today. Right now the car has 110,000 miles on it, so the clutch is probably the OEM original clutch. It's had a few track days on it, a few mountain events, so it's about time to change the clutch. The clutch, I'm actually going to go back with the OEM disc and ACT pressure plate combo, which is a very popular combination. On the flywheel, while most people go with the AP1, because the AP2 is significantly heavier, I'm actually going to go back with the ACT Pro Light flywheel, which comes in at around 8 pounds. I figure it's not my daily driver. Go big or go home, right? So it should be fun. Rev matching, heel toe downshifting once I throw that in there as well too. So let's go ahead and get started. And actually I don't have the OEM clutch in yet from UPS. Yeah, you know how that is. So hopefully UPS comes in clutch today. If not, we're just going to remove the transmission and have to wait on it. But we do have the pressure plate. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go to the inside of the car and let's go ahead and pull the shifter out. Guys, so that's with the shifter out, and so there is a little trick to getting this little boot off. I'll give you a little secret. Let's see if I can find them. See that little arrow right there? It should be focusing in on it. Right in the middle of the screen, right there. So what you're going to want to do is actually that's actually where the clips are right here that actually hold this in place. So what you're going to want to do is get a flathead screwdriver and push on the outside of the boot on those clips to help release this out. And you have to get all 4 of them, and that's how you release that without ripping the boot. And so that's all we have to do within the inside of the car. And actually, before we put the shifter back together, I'm actually going to rebuild the shifter just with like the little plastic retainer little clips, and also re-grease it up. Shout out to LHT Performance. They have a whole video tutorial on how to do that and what parts you actually need. I'll go ahead and link their video in the description. Figured since I'm pulling it out, might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Alright guys, let's go to the underneath the hood and let's get started on that part of the job. So first thing we're going to do underneath the hood is we're going to remove the air box. Then we're going to go ahead and take the serpentine belt off. And then we're going to take off the top alternator bolt, slide it to the side, so we'll have access to the top starter bolt. And let me tell you guys, that's probably the hardest part of this job, is getting that top starter bolt off. Once we get that off, we'll do a few odds and ends around here, and I will point that out. We'll pull the exhaust manifold off, and then we'll be almost set to get underneath the car. But I'll point out the little details here and there. This is the little son of a gun. Takes forever to get out. This is the top starter bolt. And I have to say, I did it in record speed today. It took about 10 minutes to get out versus last time, which was 2 hours. Last time we did have a little bit of Jaeger and Red Bull, so that might have impaired the top starter bolt, but we got it out. I'll show y'all guys how to do it. In my opinion, it's one of the hardest parts of the job, just because it's kind of nerve-wracking, because you don't want to strip out the top starter bolt, that's for sure. That would not be fun, because it attaches to the top of the transmission. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show y'all guys this, but way down in there, well, maybe you can see where the hole is. See, it's kind of hard to tell. But once you move the alternator to the side, that's the reason we took the top alternator bolt out. You can get in there, and you'll kind of look deep down in there, and you'll see the top starter bolt. And it'll be red just like that, so you'll be able to identify it. It kind of goes. Here's my setup. My setup I used was a swivel joint with the 14 and about a foot and a half of an extension, and I had to use a breaker bar on it. I would recommend, once you get it actually on the top starter bolt, to have somebody else, if you're unable to break it by hand if it's on there too tight, let's say this is on the top starter bolt, you hold the wrench on there, you have someone else grab a breaker bar and pull the other direction while you stabilize it, because you're really close to the knock sensor, and if you come too close to the motor or snap it, a lot of people have reported breaking their knock sensor. So it makes it a little bit easier if you have two different people to help you out. So we're done with that now. We're going to loosen up the steering rack bolt so we can kind of pull that shaft out a little bit. So we're going to be essentially lowering the motor a few inches down, so we don't want to put any stress on that. And then also we're going to take off the exhaust manifold up top. Let's get to it, guys. So the exhaust manifold is off the car now. Next thing we need to do is remove that clip right there. On the other side, we need to release the other electrical clip on the back side. And then we're also going to loosen up the steering shaft bolt, so that gives us more room to lower the engine from the car. And a few little odds and ends before we're able to go there. So I went ahead and marked the steering rack right here. I loosened up the top bolt and I took the bottom bolt out and I disconnected this shaft, since we will be lowering the subframe. So the last part was done. I had to pull off the AC, the 4 bolts, 4 14mm bolts that hold on an AC compressor. And now we're going to get underneath the car. The next thing we're going to do is pull off the drive shaft bolts.
A few inches later.
Alright, so quick update. The drive shaft is out of the car, as you can see. The next thing you got to do after that is you have to remove the slave cylinder off and make sure you pull the fork out, clutch fork, because that's one thing people forget to do and they can't pull the transmission off the engine. So that, make sure you have that off and you're set to go. And the next part, you're going to have to, pretty much these little brackets for all the wiring harnesses around the transmission you have to remove. It's just a few 12mm bolts that are kind of a pain to get to. And then after that, pull out 4 10mm that connect to the shifter itself, the little shifter boot right here. Just pull those 4 out. And the next step is you have to remove this brace on the subframe, which is 3 14mm on each side. The next thing we're going to do is lower the front subframe. So we're going to completely remove the center one on the subframe, and then on the front one right here, or the back one, and the other one right here, which are 2 19s, in the middle is a 17. We're going to lower the front and the rear about 3 inches on each side, and we're going to completely remove the middle one. That way we'll have room to be able to lower the motor down a little bit. Alright guys, so I just got done lowering the subframe, and as you can see here, you pull out the middle one. Here's the back bolt, the middle one's gone, and front one's right there. And you do that on both sides and lower it down to 3 inches. And that's kind of sketchy. I mean, you're underneath the car, just slowly lowering down the subframe. I mean, you're kind of thinking the subframe's going to fall on you. It's kind of sketchy, just a little bit. But Honda did design the subframe to be like this, so you could lower it on the 2 bolts that would support the weight of the subframe. That way you could get to the transmission bolts. So it is still kind of sketchy though, so I gave myself, it's around 3 inches within the Honda's manual. So next thing we're going to do, since we have all of that lowered, we're going to go ahead and tackle all the transmission bolts and then pull the transmission off. Alright guys, so we went ahead and pulled the transmission out. We're about to do some Fred Flintstone. Just got a hole on the floorboard right there. We don't have a transmission. Alright guys, so I don't know if this will focus, but here's the engine, flywheel. It will be gone soon. A heavy piece of junk. Alright, so here's the pressure plate and the clutch disc. I'm actually This clutch disc and pressure plate assembly have 113,000 miles on it.
Wow.
It's the original clutch and flywheel and pressure plate. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, for a few track events, few hard driving events and everything else, and just 113,000 miles in general, this clutch still has a little bit of life left on it. I mean, it doesn't look as terrible as I thought it would be. Granted, it wasn't slipping, but I just figured it was a good time to change it. I don't want to be stranded 4.5 hours from home up in the mountains. So that's that, guys. And over here we have a tranny. Yeah. Alright. So, one thing I found out too when doing this job, I went to pull the transmission from the engine. And well, you know how I was all excited about getting the top starter bolt out in 15 minutes or less? Well, that was the bottom starter bolt. So I ended up spending about an hour and a half trying to get the top starter bolt out, cussing a few times, so that took about an hour and a half to actually get out, so still got me at the end of the day. But I found a good trick about it though. If you have two people to do this job, you can actually, I will show you the reach around. So you can actually reach your hand up through this area through here in front of or behind the engine mount. You can actually reach around, you can actually put your hand near the top starter bolt. So what I would recommend doing is actually getting a long extension and a swivel joint and have somebody else on top of the car, maybe a ladder, or if you're doing it in your front yard. And then you can actually guide that onto the bolt, and then you have them, and you secure it on the bolt, pretty much holding it to the top starter bolt, and you have them loosen it up. So that way it doesn't fall off and hit your knock sensor as well too. So that's a good tip. So I'm still waiting on UPS, FedEx. So I guess we're gonna have to call it for now, and then we'll put it all back together when it comes in. Alright guys, quick update. I'm going to show y'all a little trick that I use to get the top starter bolt out and back in. So if you see here, I have my setup all in through the top where the alternator goes. And I have it all set up, and I just kind of guide it through there from the front part. And then what you'll do is you'll have somebody come up here and tighten it or loosen it depending on what stage. And keep in mind guys, my front lower subframe is lowered at this point. I don't know if it'll make any difference. I think you'll have more room if it is lowered. And what I do is so you have more of a gap with the front subframe lowered, and I reach my hand up in front of the behind the engine mount, and I reach up and I guide the extension and socket to the bolt. Now it's kind of difficult to get your arm up there, but you have to kind of feel around and find it and kind of tweak your shoulder a little bit. But once you got it on there, you hold it on to the top starter bolt. You have somebody else up top tighten it or loosen it, and that's my little trick to make it a little bit easier. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see if it starts. Alright guys, so I just took the car for a test drive. I might have stalled it once, maybe twice. Yeah, it's going to take a while to get used to that really lightweight flywheel. Going from 22 pounds to around 8 pounds is going to be a big difference. But the car, I'm not really pushing it right now because it's a brand new clutch. I want to break it in completely before I do anything like that. Any testing to see how it feels, rev matching and whatnot. I'm really excited about that. But the car felt great. Everything, there was no weird sounds. I did run into one issue though. So I was going to turn and my turn signals wouldn't work. And I'm like, I'll just be like a normal Oklahoma driver, right? I'm not in the Mustang this time. No, so I can't get away with that in this car. But so then I was like, damn it, what did I hit? What did I hit? And then I was thinking, well, when I put the center console back in, I never plugged the wires in back underneath it. So don't forget that stuff when you're putting everything back together. Besides that, the car felt great. Like I said before on the previous clutch and whatnot, when I did upon startup, I heard almost like a little knocking sound. It used to scare me all the time. and then it doesn't make the sound anymore. So I'm assuming it was probably my throwout bearing starting to make a little bit of sound, because you got to think, guys, 113,000 miles in the stock OEM clutch and pressure plate, a pilot bearing and throwout bearing, and it looked pretty good. I mean, if you think about it, a few hard driving events up in the mountains of the Boston Mountain Tour, and then also a few track it day events, and it was still holding up. So I was really shocked. So that's probably where I was getting a little bit of my noise. And also after a long day of driving this car, I could notice when I was idling, I could press the clutch down and I could hear the throwout bearing making a little bit of noise. So I knew it was about time to change it out. So brand new clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, and now we're good for around 400 horsepower. So you know what that means, guys. Maybe a supercharger? Who knows? But now, guys, next thing we're gonna have to do to Ivanka, since John had to turn his S2000 into a Mustang and get a lot of blood on the front end, we might have to do something for Halloween on Ivanka in the backside. We'll see. We'll see. I'll see y'all guys in the next episode. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe for more, and we will see you guys in the next one. Yet, I have some breaking news that'll let y'all know. So we did just finish the website. It's venomracing.com. Go ahead and check it out. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And now we will see y'all guys in the next one.